Hello, YouTube, and welcome to another Bucket List Gamers mini review. I am Jay, and as always, I'm joined by Eddie.
Hello.
And today we are looking at a game called FuryDough. It is by a developer called SquirrelConGafas. We've been kindly provided a Steam key for it, and we've given it a go, and we thought we'd share our thoughts. It drew me in straight away with the sort of title card for the game when I was looking through these releases on Steam. And the fact that it's sort of a little bit roguelike, twin stick shootery, which is my kind of game these days. I like these games where you can drop in, drop out, have 10 or 15 minutes and play something else or play it in between doing other things. So, what was your first impression? So, you've watched me play it, you haven't actually controlled it yourself, but we'll go into that shortly.
It's incredibly vibrant, I'll give it that. And the graphics, although you can't even consider them basic, really, because the animation's quite good.
Yeah.
It's sort of a 2.5D isometric view of the level, which is a bit Bomberman-y, as me and you discussed before jumping on. But the characters all seem to have a sort of life to them. They're not just 2D paper cutouts or some nicked art assets. They're quite well crafted. The colours are quite, as I said, vibrant. It's very in your face. There were a couple of glitches that we experienced. not more so than with pad support, but I think first impressions wise, I think it's incredibly well put together, and with it being roguelike, I can only see people getting very addicted to it very quickly, because it does look like one of those, I'll just have another go at that.
Yeah, I think if you're watching the footage now, you'll probably look at it and go, it's quite basic. It's the same thing over and over again with the difficulty ramping up, which is, yeah, pretty much what it is. But I think with these kinds of games, when you get that in its first instance, it can only go up from there. They can always develop more ways that the levels play. They can develop more enemy types, more weapon types for you to use, different elements. So instead of it being just a random layout of blocks, they could make one where it's an actual maze and you have to find your way from the start to the end. Or they could introduce different types of enemies that are a bit more bullet spongy, or there's loads of places they can go with it. And I think for a first impression, what they've got is pretty good. Like you say, it looks nice, it looks vibrant, it controls pretty well. I mean, the issues you alluded to, we did have a couple of issues with controllers. So the first one we plugged in, the fire button paused the game for some reason, and there's no way to remap controls. So it wasn't that we'd remapped the button, it was just whenever I hit the trigger, it paused the game for some reason. So we plugged a different pad in, which overcame that. But also, one of the first ability you unlock is like a dash that will let you go through walls. So if you're being chased by a huge group of donuts, you can dash through a wall, and it takes them longer to get around to you. But the problem is, if you dash and your dash ends within a wall, you get trapped inside that wall. So you can't shoot the donuts, they can't attack you, and you just have to wait for it to charge up to then dash out and hope that you go in a direction that is in the maze rather than in another wall. And I think when we first started playing it, I was dashing around inside walls for about 5 minutes, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Just trying to actually escape and carry on with the game. So there's little bits like that, which I'm sure during playtesting they'll find out about, if not from us just saying it now, and pick up on and iron out. It really, really reminds me of a game. I don't know if you've seen a game called Blazing Beaks.
No, it's not one I'm familiar with.
I got it on. It was either in a Humble Bundle or it was part of Humble Choice, and it looks very, very similar. Blazing Beaks is obviously quite a bit further along and developed, and is more of an actual roguelike, as in you go around, you wipe all the enemies out, you move to another floor, and you just keep going. Then you get a shop every so often where you can upgrade your weapons or you can pick up collectibles and stuff. It looks very, very similar. Like, I don't know if they've played this and took inspiration from it, or it is just completely coincidental. But they look really, really alike, and I think Blazing Beaks has done quite well for itself. I think you can get it on Switch and things now. It's not just a Steam game anymore. But hopefully this one takes off in a similar vein, because I like the theme as well. This idea that there's these donut makers in the level, and they're creating these horrific enemy donuts that are hunting you down. I'd like a bit more backstory, but I think it's a cool little angle to go for.
Yeah, the only thing I didn't understand and I thought was a bit in there for the sake of being quirky was, why is the main character a platypus?
Yeah.
It didn't sort of gel with the rest of it. A dual-wielding platypus versus donuts, they're not something you sort of naturally associate with one another.
Yeah.
But it looks like as well that it's sort of taken inspiration from bullet hell shooters. Because the enemies just do not stop. Instead of bullets, you just get relentless torrents of enemies, and you're having to dodge through and skip round them. It's a bit like, oh god, My Best Friend Pedro.
Yes,
Is it the one
yeah.
where it was a banana, where it was just
Yeah.
relentless, and it was like Twitch reactions? It's not in any way that sort of level design, but the Twitch reactions and the constantly having to sort of dodge and weave and carry on shooting sort of thing, just so you can fight the waves back to give yourself a little bit of breathing space while your dash recharges, and you can dash through a wall and give yourself a little bit more room to get towards the donut producing factory. It's that kind of frantic, and it's probably what will make people go, oh, do you know what, I'll give that level another go, or I'll just want one more run through, because it feels like one of those games where if you die, it'll be because of your own fault, because you've overextended. It doesn't seem like it'll be cheap in terms of just shitty enemy placements or just overwhelming enemies with just rocket launchers, just constant barrages of stuff like that. It seems fairly balanced in terms of you have the ample opportunity to fight a wave back and then dodge through a wall as the next avalanche of enemies comes at you to give yourself that little bit more time. So each failure will be because you've overextended or you've got greedy. It won't be because of shitty AI or what have you.
Provided I've got any competency in playing it, the footage that you're watching, you'll be able to see that each time you finish a round, you collect forks. Again, not sure why forks.
Yeah.
Knives would have probably made more sense. I would say you probably take a knife to a donut more than you take a fork to it. But that's by the by. You collect forks and you can use them to upgrade your weapon or your abilities. And I think you can only have one of each. You can definitely only have one weapon selected. I think you can only have... You might be able to have two abilities, actually, because I think the control scheme did say ability 1 and 2. But you can upgrade these, and they all cost more forks as they get more useful, etc. But there's also weapons in there that I don't get on with in my type of play. So I'd much prefer the free pistol that you get to the shotgun, which costs 20 forks, because it's slower, you've got to be a much closer range. And in this kind of game, I don't think that behooves you, because they just come in waves and waves, and doing more damage doesn't help. Maybe in the later levels, and if there's ones that do take more hits, it does. But in the earlier ones, you may as well hit them with a pistol bullet as a shotgun shell, because it does the same damage. So there's lots of combinations you can put together with the weapons and the abilities to find your perfect playstyle. And that's one of those things I was talking about. You can always build on that. You can put a million more weapons in. You can put a million more abilities in. And I don't know if you've ever played... Is it Brotato?
Yes, yeah.
For me, this is a million times more of a game than that is.
Yeah.
The only fun I got out of Brotato was picking what power-up to get at the end of each level. Because the actual game, in inverted commas, is just you running away from things while it auto-shoots at any... I know you can turn that off and do it yourself, but then it's nearly impossible. It's just you running away from things or getting close enough to something so one of your close-range weapons will do it damage, collecting a load of crap, running the timer down, then the fun bit where you get to pick the power-ups and upgrades and see what synergizes, then more running around like an idiot, doing nothing. This just feels like more of a game than that, and I really hope that given how successful that has been, this can do something close to that. Well, it doesn't even have to be close to that for this game to be a success, because for some reason that stupid bloody potato game's gone off the chart and everyone seems to love it, and it was on Game Pass, and I just don't turn into a bit of a rant against that game rather than a preview of this one. But yeah, I just don't get it, and I hope this game can do something that's similar to that, because this is much more of a game than that is, even at this stage, in my opinion.
Yeah, and this one seems to have a bit more charm to it as well. The art, I never really got on with the art of Brotato, to be fair. It just looked like someone had designed it as part of their web comic, or had doodled on the back of an exercise book in class and gone, this'll make a great character, and they just run with it. And this feels like it's actually had some sort of thought, some testing put into it. Although the platypus does look a bit like he belongs in Phineas and Ferb. That has just occurred to me because he's like a teal-coloured platypus, and the only one I can think of is Phineas and Ferb. But yeah, I'd be interested to know where they came up with that. But yes, anyway, it does feel like it's just a bit more consumer-friendly than Brotato, so I'm hoping it does better.
Well, there you go, SquirrelConGafas. If you want a licensing deal, get onto the Phineas and Ferb people. You've pretty much designed a game for them already. I mean, I don't think this would be out of the way in a mobile form either. I think you could probably play it quite well on a phone. It's just whether you'd be able to get the movement, the aiming, and the shooting all out of a mobile controller. I think that would be the difficult thing. I think you just have to, because currently, if you're shooting, you move slower, don't you? We've realised. Yeah. So it's not in your benefit to just constantly have your finger on the trigger and move around. If they scrapped that and just did it that you move to wherever your finger is and you fire in that direction or something along those lines, and you could just drag him around the screen, I think it would work as a mobile game. So I think if it remains as straightforward and simple as it is now, I think it'd work on a mobile as well. If they go wild with it and put in some more elements from some of the other games we've mentioned and other roguelikes and twin stick shooters and that kind of thing, I think then it probably becomes too complicated for a mobile game. But at the minute, I could see it perfectly working on a mobile, or then doing a mobile version and then a more advanced version for PC and console, for example. But getting ahead of ourselves a bit, I think final verdict is one to watch, because if they pad this game out and make it a little bit more in depth and something that keeps you coming back as well. Currently, when you die, it is completely you're back to square one. Whereas I think a lot of the better games these days, you unlock stuff that you can use in future runs, don't you? And things like that. So I think it maybe needs an element of that to carry through it. But other than that, I think it's one I'm definitely going to keep an eye on.
Yeah, definitely. And when you consider the price of it as well, so it's currently on Steam. We're in a bundle with something called Genome Guardian, which looks like a turret shooter roguelite as well. And it's £10.
Yeah.
For the pair of them, which you'd spend more on a mobile phone game a lot of the time. Yeah. It's worth it.
It's worth it, and it's one of those that, like I say, I can see them running with and developing more. So essentially for your £5 now, getting in early, you're probably going to get a lot more than a $5's worth of game if they continue developing it, which I think they're probably going to do. If they've given us a key to look at it, they're obviously planning on doing more with it if they want us to talk about it. So, yeah, thank you again for providing us with that key. We have had some fun playing it. And I will have no doubt some more fun trying to get footage of it, because if you're not aware of what happened in our last video, getting footage was a bit tricky. So hopefully I can run this one now. I've got all the kinks ironed out and I can run it and record some footage, but we will see. But yeah, I think that's probably a good place to call it. Yeah. So I will say good luck, guys, with this one. And until next time, that's goodbye from me.
That's goodbye from me.